This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Right, your call. Groping. How easy is it to speak out? The Lib Dem MP Lord Renard facing those allegations of sexually inappropriate behaviour, which he denies he inappropriately touched female party activists. How widespread is it? Is it worse in the past than it is now? Are ways of dealing with it much better now? How often does it still happen in a workplace, in a pub, in a club? Has it happened to you? Or what can you do about it? How easy is it to speak out? 0500 909 693. Tweet at BBC 5 Live. Good morning. This is your call. We want to hear from you. You're with 5 Live from the BBC. Well, all these accusations of inappropriate behaviour and groping, specifically the Lib Dem MP Lord Renard, allegations of sexually inappropriate behaviour, he denies them. I just wonder if attitudes have changed, whether it's now easier now to speak out, whether it is actually seen these days rather than 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago as being utterly unacceptable, or is it still going on? Ellie, you've been
I've been in the BBC for 20 odd years.
Has it changed? Do you remember things being different? Do you remember things happening then that just would never be accepted now?
I think the attitude has changed. I think it's become less acceptable to behave in ways that were probably, part of daily life. 20 years ago. I mean, you and I are both working for Radio 1 at the same time, and we're not going to obviously talk about specific allegations against specific people at the time. But yes, there are times when I think there is no woman of my age who has not at some stage found themselves
a brush, a tap, a squeeze, all that sort of thing.
Just a kind of, or even a gentle pat on the behind in what would have, and in those days seemed like a friendly way.
Yeah.
But now I think we just all look at it and say, actually, it was the Richard Keys and Andy Gray thing a little while ago when Charlotte Jackson, do you remember the Sky presenter? And Andy Gray said to her, "All right, love, just tuck the microphone lead down there," pointing to his trousers. And I thought every single woman who's worked in sports journalism at some stage has probably had something like that happen to them. But you watch it now and you think, that's just, how can you get away with that?
Yeah.
And maybe you wouldn't have thought that's unacceptable in those days.
That's interesting.
But actually now you look at it and you think, actually it's not acceptable.
So you could think of specific things that might have happened then that you would actually, you'd have just brushed off and said, "Oh, what an idiot," and you'd have got on with it. But
you do get on
now,
with it. I think when I was starting out, particularly in sport, you had to brush these things off, because otherwise people would say, "Oh, come on, it's only a joke, love. It's only don't take me seriously." And and so you would do it because you wanted to be one of the lads as well.
Fascinating. Stay with us for the hour. Go out and call us. 0500 909 693. That's our best call so far. How widespread is groping? How often does it happen in a workplace, in a pub, in a club? Has it happened to you? What can you do about it? You're not here tomorrow, are you, Rach Barrett?
I'm not. No, Rachel's returning. It's been lovely.
See you soon. Thanks, Ellie. Eleanor Oldroyd is leaving the building. Let's hear from you on this. Holly Dustin joins us. Holly is director of the End Violence Against Women Coalition. Hello, Holly.
Hi there.
What are we talking about here when we're talking about this kind of groping? It's wrong to call it low level. It's disturbing. It's upsetting. It's appalling. But how widespread do you think it still is in the workplace, for example?
Well, I mean, I think there have been various studies done in different contexts, both in the workplace but in other contexts. So, for example, we did a poll in London last year, which found that a staggering number of young women in particular, almost half of young women in London, had experienced some form of, wolf whistling or sexual comments or unwanted touching in public places over the previous year. And, I think we've got to see this as, creating a culture which makes women feel unsafe, which makes women feel uncomfortable. It's wholly unacceptable, and there's a lot more that we could be doing to challenge it. And obviously the story in the news at the moment about the Lib Dems has kind of really brought this to the fore. But it is an issue in all areas of public life still. I mean, I think it's right what you've just been discussing, that in some senses, in some areas, it's seen as much less acceptable now when we have laws and policies in place. But I'll just give you the example of schools. So we asked young people what their experiences of sexual harassment and name-calling and unwanted touching was in schools when they were at school in the UK. And we were really shocked to find that 70% of young men and women said that they'd just witnessed daily or weekly name-calling against girls, sexual name-calling against girls, and actually that 1 in 3 girls themselves said that they had experienced unwanted sexual touching at school, which means, that they're growing up and learning in an unsafe environment, and it's just not acceptable.
Is there a danger of conflating things like wolf whistling with groping?
I mean, these are different experiences, but they are all part of a sexist culture, if you like. So I think we do have to see them as part of a continuum. And, these are all sexual offences, so they, on one side of the scale, you've got, wolf whistling and name-calling and unwanted touching. But, it is on the same, at the other end of the scale, you've got more serious assault. So I think we do have to look at this as part of a broader culture. And, of course, what we've seen from the Jimmy Savile case, that kind of culture of sexual harassment and sexism actually enabled the more serious abuse to happen. So I think it's not. I don't think it.
You think it's a continuum? Do you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you?
And the fact is,
some sort of inadequate, dirty old fool in the office, touching someone's bum in an unacceptable way. It's not really a continuum towards predatory paedophilia on that scale, though, is it?
Well, actually, for some, I think we're wrong to see it as sort of, an old fool in the office. Actually, this is about, it's about abusive behaviour, and we should recognise it as that. And for some, they may be committing more serious offences as well. Some may not be. But I think we should see it as abusive behaviour rather than, a silly old fool. I think we've kind of got beyond that stage now. Mm-hmm. And, the government does have good policies on addressing violence against women and girls, but sexual harassment has always been, in public places and in schools and so on. It's always been a little bit overlooked because we've always seen it as, a bit of a joke. But actually, what's happening, what we're seeing in the news now is showing us, it has serious consequences. It makes women feel very uncomfortable. It puts them off going into politics or progressing in their career. And we've got to, take firm action to tackle it. And we'd actually like to see all the political parties, showing us the colour of their money and saying, look, this is what our policies are on sexual harassment, and this is how we deal with it.
Do you think we deal with it? Do you think we deal with this far better now than we did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I think we do in certain places, and I suspect we're a lot better in certain workplaces at dealing with this now. But in other contexts, for example, as I was saying, in schools, and think about online and social media, the kind of sexual harassment and abuse that a lot of women and young women and girls experience through, social media, Twitter or Facebook or whatever, is actually much worse. And obviously that's a kind of new phenomenon that's come with developing technologies. So I think it's different in different contexts. And actually the government has just signed this European Convention, which will require it to take more effective action on sexual harassment. And we've got to look at what happens in the kind of offline world as well as what's happening on the online world.
I don't think it's an easy thing, this, for people to talk about. We say it's easy to speak out, and people do. Clearly it's not. I think people find it still, evidently we're getting quite a few texts on this, but so a lot of people are unwilling to come on the air and talk about it. It's interesting, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it is, and it's probably not that surprising when you see, let's take the Jimmy Savile case, because, we've had a lot more in the news about that, and there's been a lot coming out about that. But in those kind of situations, you've got women and girls coming forwards and saying this happened to them, and they were either dismissed or not believed. And actually, that's part of the allegations in relation to the Lib Dems, and we don't know what their outcomes are going to be in this situation. But part of the allegations are that women reported what had happened to them, and then nothing happened. Now, what kind of message does that send, both to those women and other women who may be experiencing sexual harassment or behaviour that they know is not right or feel very uncomfortable about? And particularly where it might be that the alleged perpetrator is someone in a very powerful position.
Which further complicates the process of getting it out in the open and complaining about it.
It shouldn't. There should be very clear policies and procedures in place so that potential victims of this kind of behaviour have confidence in the system and have confidence in their own organisation that it will be dealt with properly.
Legally, it's much easier to deal with these things now. It's far more recognised, isn't it? There are better processes in place.
Well, I think there are in the workplace. I think we, as a community, if you like, as a society, sexual harassment in public places and on public transport, we're still on the back foot of dealing with. And as I say, in relation to schools and the kind of sexual harassment that a lot of girls
in this country, it's a lot better than in some other countries on the continent. Given experiences of friends of mine with the amount of bottom pinching that goes on public transport. Yeah. Listen, we got Mike. Let's go some calls. Interesting. Michael and Dan Patrick, what do you want to say, Michael?
Nicky, I think if somebody is being physically touched, that's quite easy to complain about. But your contributor there just mentioned wolf whistling, or if, say, in my instance, if a bunch of girls in the factory floor tells me I've got a cute hat, I wouldn't, I'd feel stupid even complaining about that. And likewise, if the girl put me and wolf whistled at her, I'd, in Northern Ireland language, tell her to wise up. There's a bit of social interaction and a bit of compliment. And let's look at advertising on TV. How many times do we advertise where girls have got their skirts trapped in a lift and they blush because a fella looks at them, or girls are watching the window cleaner while they're drinking their diet soda? There is a line of physical touching, no problem, complain about it. But a bit of banter or chit chat, unless it's persistent, I can't grasp a complaint about that at all.
Mm. How do you respond to what you're hearing from Michael Holly-Dustin?
I think we're beyond that. I think we really have to get beyond seeing sexual harassment as a bit of banter, really. This isn't banter. It's inappropriate behaviour. It's abusive behaviour. In some circumstances, it might be a criminal offence. It might be a sexual assault. But in whatever the circumstance, I think we need to get beyond that kind of 70s idea that this is just something that women have to put up with as a bit of a joke love, because it's not. It has a difference to women. It makes them feel unsafe. It has an impact, for example, travelling around at night, on where you feel comfortable to travel, what route home you go after going out for a drink or whatever. And that's something that really has to change. So we think that, in relation to public transport, for example, there's a lot the authorities could do to put up notices, public service announcements and so on, as they do in America and other countries, to say, this is unacceptable behaviour, don't do it.
But what is the difference between, first of all, you're constantly talking about females. In the canteen, if a bunch of giggling females tell me I've got a cute backside, are you telling me that's sexual harassment?
If you don't feel comfortable with that, then that's something that you should address. But the fact is, sexual harassment is overwhelmingly perpetrated by men against women.
Hold on. That means that you're going to exclude minorities simply because that is what they are, minorities. I'm sorry, you're bang out of order with that argument. As a man, if I feel that I'm being sexually harassed, you're telling me just because I'm in the minority, I don't really need to discuss it. So let's clear that one off.
No, not at all. No, not at all. I'm saying...
Well, let her respond.
No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that most of this behaviour is experienced by women, and that's what all the research shows. And what we need to do is actually create public spaces and workplaces and schools and learning environments where everyone feels equal and valued and respected. We know of cases where girls are going into school wearing shorts under their skirts because they're, just so fed up with the boys lifting their skirts up and pinching their bum or whatever. Now, that's just not acceptable. And those schools need to have clear policies to deal with that.
and I can accept physical contact, but you've mentioned wolf whistling. You know, those are compliments. There's a difference between harassing somebody and paying somebody a compliment. You know, somebody telling me I look cute or whatever. You know, it's a compliment, or I look smart, or I look handsome, whatever. Those are compliments. You know, you're fudging that black and white line between touching and almost being flirtatious.
Let's get just another quick thought on this. Nick in Oxford, while we're on this point, what do you want to say, Nick?
It's not that bad, is it, Nicky?
Sorry, what? Run that by us again.
That's not that bad, is it, really?
Holly, tell him why it could be.
Well, I mean, what women say when you ask them is actually it often makes them feel very uncomfortable, makes them feel very unsafe, and it can actually, you know, change women's behaviour about what form of transport they want to use at what time of day or night, where they go, and that's what the research shows. So sexual comments, you know, indecent exposure, and so on. These are all things that actually do have an impact on women's lives. And I think we've got to create an environment where everyone feels safe and they don't feel like there's certain parts of town that they can't walk down, you know, at certain parts of the day or night, or, you know, that they don't feel uncomfortable.
Nicky?
Yeah, go on, Nick.
Well, to be honest, I'm in the building industry, in construction industry, and I can tell you now that guys on the scaffolding, the wolf whistles, ladies, men, whichever terminology you want to use, I can tell you now that nearly all of them turn round with a wry smile on their face because they know they've been noticed. It's a compliment. It's a cheeky compliment. And this lady is trying to make it something it's not. It's not dirty. And I totally agree with, if you're not asked to touch, don't touch. Fair enough. You know, it doesn't happen at all. You shouldn't have that in offices.
Okay, this is the question. This is the question, I mean, Holly Dustin. And we don't want to belittle what has allegedly happened to any of these women. But I suppose the question is, Holly, is there a place in the office for sexual banter? In the workplace, is there a place in the workplace for sexual banter or not?
I think, I mean, you know, the word banter has got a bit loaded, hasn't it? And I think it does really imply sexual harassment.
But some people enjoy banter, don't they? And some people don't.
Yeah, that's right, obviously. And I think there is a difference between, you know, jokes between work colleagues and behaviour that is abusive. Now, your caller there says that he and his colleagues wolf whistle at women walking by. You know, that's abusive behaviour. A lot of those women will feel very uncomfortable. They may be looking around. That might well be a grimace. You know, I don't know how he knows how he can read their minds. That's what makes women feel uncomfortable in public spaces.
So why do they smile? Why do they smile?
That's the kind of behaviour.
It's a compliment.
Well, let's hear from Angela in Oxfordshire. Angela, what do you think?
I think it's really outrageous of this woman to compare being groped and being sexually abused with wolf whistling. I mean, and she's trying to say that you have to change the whole of society so that no woman can be paid any kind of reference that she's female by a man. She just seems to be going completely over the top and belittling sexual harassment by comparing it to wolf whistling, which actually is a compliment.
Yeah.
It's a compliment if somebody thinks you're attractive. Well, you know, are you going to say that it's wrong for a man to open a door for a woman as well?
Okay, let's explore those issues in just a moment. Angela, can you stay there for a second? Angela, can you stay there for a second?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Holly, I'll be right back with you as well. Holly Dustin, Director of End Violence Against Women Coalition. Angela's raised a couple of interesting points which we'll explore after we've heard from Michelle at 9:23.
This is 5 Live Breakfast. Your call.
All right, we've got Holly Dustin, Director of End Violence Against Women Coalition. We're talking about groping and, you know, the spectrum, I guess. Angela just come on the line. We've got Joy in Hastings to talk to as well. Joy, we'll be with you in a minute. You can join in. Hello, are you there, Joy?
Okay, I'm fine. I'm here. I'm not Hastings. I'm near Battle.
Oh, I do. Listen, I'm so sorry. All right, Angela, what were you saying? Angela.
Hi there. I was just saying I find it outrageous that you compare sexual harassment to wolf whistling, and this woman seems to be like the opposite of misogynist, a man hater. I don't know why she thinks that there should be no relationship or friendliness between people. groping, she's belittling groping and sexual harassment completely.
Have you been groped? Have you?
Well, I've had stuff happen to me when I was younger.
Right.
Very unwelcome. And it's a very serious thing. It messes up your whole life. Being wolf whistled at does not, I can assure you.
Holly Dustin, just respond to that. A lot of calls on this since you brought wolf whistling into it, Holly.
A lot of women feel very uncomfortable at comments made at them in the street or on public transport or in public spaces. Now, there are obviously, different levels of seriousness of behaviour, but if it's unwanted, if it's a comment made by a stranger in the street that makes you feel uncomfortable,
then you should
unwanted.
just avoid
them. Now, that's not the same as sexual assault, and that's not what we're saying, but we're saying that those kind of unwanted comments or behaviours...
But you're bundling it all into one thing. It's not the same thing at all. You've got to have a dividing line.
Well, I think what happens is, though, that those kind of unwanted comments and making women feel uncomfortable in public spaces or in the workplace or at school or whatever creates an environment or a culture where women feel unsafe in certain circumstances, or they feel uncomfortable, or they feel they have to move, from one carriage to another.
Do you think if somebody gets away with a wolf whistle, it then would lead to something more, and then it will lead to a grope? No. Do you think that? No, you don't. I know you don't think that, Angela. I know you don't think that. You've made it quite clear you don't think that. Let's hear from Joy. Angela, stay there. Hello, Joy. Derek's in Glasgow as well.
Here.
Joy, what would you like to say?
Well, I was saying, I have been groped 3 times, which isn't very pleasant, and once it was on the London Underground, and another one at Fulham Football Club, my lovely team, but nevertheless you can't, you don't know all the people that are there, and also I've been stalked.
Oh dear.
And yes, that was when I was working at a famous London store, and one of the customers decided he liked the look of me and decided he would stalk me several times. It wasn't just one off.
And did you deal with it? Did you complain about it? Did you have him?
It was a bit difficult because he would follow me onto the underground train and couldn't,
It's awful.
He was just, and I would sort of walk all around Soho to get away from him on leaving work. To go to the underground.
And when you were groped, as a Fulham Football Club, it was in the crowd, you couldn't complain about it. Were you groped at work? Have you ever been groped?
No, I mean, I chatted up and touched, obviously, different things. But it's the wolf whistling I find no difficulty with whatsoever. I'm like your previous caller. It's something, I mean, they're not going to do... If they're top of a building and you walk by and they wolf whistle, there's no harm in it, is there? And as I said, I'd rather be wolf whistled than not.
Would you?
I think it would.
I'd rather be wolf whistled than not, says Joy.
Yes, than not
in
wolf
battle.
whistled.
Yeah.
Because
I think it would be.
They're only going to, in the main, they wolf whistle what they think is an attractive person, don't they? Attractive female.
So it's a compliment.
It's in my way, it is a sort of a compliment. Yes, a fun compliment. Put it that way, a fun compliment.
Interesting. Before we hear back from you, Holly, let's hear from Derek in Glasgow. Derek, your story?
Yeah, mine's a kind of role reversal, Nicky, where I live, obviously, as you said, in Glasgow, and I went to a corporate event down south England wearing a kilt, and consistently for a period during the night I was groped. There was one person in particular that was pretty persistent with it. And, the first couple of times that it happened, it was humorous. But, after a period of time when I kept saying, it has to stop, it didn't. It continued by various people. In the morning when I spoke to my boss about it, she said, I think you brought it upon yourself. Now, going on from that, I've just come back from the school gate where I've dropped my kids, and I've spoken to, listening to your situation on the radio, spoken to a number of gate mums. And to a person, they said you brought it upon yourself by going traditionally as a Scotsman.
Really?
Yeah.
Because if you turned it round and Holly had a young girl who said you brought it on yourself being groped by wearing a short skirt, you'd be outraged, Holly. Are you outraged about Derek's story?
Yeah, that sounds really horrible.
Yeah.
That sounds really horrible. I'm sure that's that's something that people experience a lot, isn't it? And it kind of feeds into this victim blaming that you've brought it on yourself. So I think whoever that happens to, that's a really horrible experience. And I think what we're talking about here is a range of different kind of experiences, some more extreme than others.
But all of which you believe betoken an attitude in our society?
Well,
an unhealthy attitude. A sexist
I think
attitude.
a lot of people, a lot of women feel don't like wolf whistling, don't like being, in the allegations in the news about the Liberal Democrat case. That's a situation that's in a sort of work environment where allegations range from unwanted touching to propositioning and so on. And those women said they felt very uncomfortable and that their complaints were dismissed. So I think we just need to think. If some of your callers think, well, they like wolf whistling and that's welcome. Actually, a lot of women don't like wolf whistling.
And it says something else about broader attitudes which need to be tackled. I understand. Thank you. Listen, thank you very much for coming on this morning. It's Holly Dustin, the director of the End Violence Against Women Coalition, and some interesting calls. Join us. We're asking the question this morning: how easy is it to speak out? This, of course, after the allegations against the Lib Dem MP Lord Renard from a number of women, allegations he denies. It's time for Simon King. Here's the weather. So, it's at workplace, sex pests and groping. How easy is it to speak out? 0500 909 693. Let's bring on Sarah in Bookham. Hello, and Bob in Pembroke, and Maggie in Cornwall. Maggie, over to you. Go ahead, Maggie.
Well, I tuned in, actually, as I was driving along, Nicky.
Thank you.
It's okay. I was absolutely appalled at the way Holly Dustin was spoken to. And I think she is just a perfect illustration of how when women start to speak out about what's happening to them, they get silenced. And what they're saying is actually often minimised. And so from a discussion about groping, we suddenly found ourselves having a discussion about wolf whistling.
Yes.
And the whole discussion got taken away. And I think it's just a typical way that when women and girls try and speak out about these things, that we're silenced. So we don't try again.
But you're right. I mean, groping is a completely different phenomenon, isn't it? But do you believe, as Holly believed, it's on the same spectrum?
Well, I think it's all about women being objectified as sexual objects. And I think once you start to objectify somebody, be it by a wolf whistle or whatever means you want to objectify women and girls, and you objectify and sexualise them, then that is on the continuum of abuse.
Absolutely agree.
Sarah?
I absolutely agree with that. Well done. Well said.
What else do you want to say, Sarah? I'll come back to Maggie in a minute, but Sarah, look, you've picked up the ball. Run with it.
Thank you. Well, I actually called it. I actually texted in to support Holly.
Yeah.
Because it's what was happening there was absolutely typical of the men shouting, "No, it's just a compliment. It's just a compliment." They really don't have any appreciation of what it's like for young women trying to go about their daily lives and having comments made about them. All right, they may think that they're a compliment, but you ought to be able to go around without your appearance being commented on. It's very. My daughters hate it. They absolutely hate it. And I'm to be honest with you, the guys on the building sites. I work with constructors quite a lot in my job, and from my knowledge of what I've experienced is they're not allowed to do this anymore because employers want to be responsible employers and they want to make sure that their employees are not harassing women in the street. And that's what it is. Yes, it's very, very low down the spectrum, but it's all, as Maggie said, it's all part of a continuum. And when women speak up about it, they're told that they're spoil sports or they're killjoys.
It's better now, though, isn't it? It's better now than it was.
It is better because I think because employers are saying to their employees, no, this is not acceptable, and that has to follow through into the workplace.
Yeah. Colette, actually, I'm going to bring Colette in because stay right where you are, but Colette in Didsbury, you've worked on a lot of construction sites yourself, haven't you? So chip in with what you think, Colette.
I was just going to say that I've worked in construction since the late 80s, and with me, because I was on the professional side, I didn't really have much, we didn't have much harassment because people protected us. On the one incident that I did actually get groped, which was on a night out with the site lads, I turned around and he grabbed my bottom, so I turned around and grabbed his crotch, could you call it? And squeezed very hard, and I don't think he ever did it again. And he was quite surprised that somebody would actually turn around and do something of the same extent back to him.
A lesson learned, Colette.
It was a definite lesson learned, to put tears to his eyes. But I was just going to say, through construction, I've been in it for 20 years now, and professional people are treated with respect. There's not much wolf whistling. If there was any wolf whistling at our site, the person that would be doing that would be sent off site. They wouldn't be employed because it's just not acceptable.
John's there in Bristol. Everyone, let's listen to what John has to say. Hi, John.
Hi, Nicky. I worked in an office probably 10 years ago, for 20 years, so from 30 years ago to 10. And staffed mostly by women, and there was a guy in the office who was a routine groper. But he was regarded, as you mentioned earlier, as a bit of a harmless old fool, you know. And on numerous occasions I offered to follow it up, because I didn't approve of it. But the women felt nobody ever wanted me to take it up or to deal with anything, do anything about it, do anything officially. I don't know why they didn't. I think they felt that they just didn't want the hassle. They said, "Oh no, don't worry, it was harmless." So it was very difficult to deal with. It's very difficult to backdate attitudes that we have now to what was prevalent then and what seemed to be acceptable. I'm sure it wasn't welcome, but people didn't seem to mind it. And there were occasions when one of the people would come in from being out and say, "Oh, I've got a knot in my neck, so-and-so, can you give me a massage?" So they actually invited it as well. So it was difficult. There were a lot of mixed messages at the time. And people seemed less willing now to speak out than they are. So it was very difficult as a manager to deal with. I'm glad now that they are more willing to speak out, and companies seem to take this much more seriously. So one can deal with it much more effectively.
Yeah, Sarah in Bookham, that's a good point, isn't it?
It is a good point. It is a good point.
Bob's in Pembroke. Hello, Bob.
Good morning, Nicky.
On you go, sir.
Right, so a few years ago I worked as a security officer in the retail industry, and one day whilst on patrol in the said store, a very senior worker there came up to me and said, "Bob, I've just been groped by those two young girls over there." So I approached these two young girls and laid the facts before them, and they went on about victimization, harassment, and he's a dirty old man, etc. So on checking the camera on the film relevant to that day, it was quite obvious what had happened. They had done what he had said. The company, as ever, would not wish to get involved in such a high-profile incident. The parents came in remonstrating, shouting and bawling. The management had words with the parents who were protesting about their lovely girl's innocence, etc. And the said worker was asked to keep a low profile. Now, I don't know what you think about that, Nicky, but nothing was ever done about this. This gentleman would have been sacked on the spot if he'd been guilty of doing this on film, and one can only say that the said company would do this every time. I have no doubt about this, Nicky, because a few weeks later, and this is just an allied fact, the same management of the said company asked me to approach an epileptic customer in the store, everybody knew was an epileptic, ask him to leave the store because he was upsetting young customers. Now, those are the facts that I can recall about this groping incident. The said man who was groped, Nicky, was a very nice man, very upset, went through all the complaints procedure, but was not backed for 1 second as to what had happened, and I felt that was so appalling. Appalling.
Thank you very much for your...
Can I come back in? It's Maggie in Cornwall.
Oh, hi, Maggie, yeah.
Can I just come back in? I think one of the things we talked about was why women don't talk about and are silenced around groping. And I think the programme has showed all the reasons why women and girls won't come forward. I think the word groping alone minimises what happens. We're talking about sexual assaults here. And I think, there are a lot of myths coming through the programme today that women lie about it, that really it's just a bit of fun.
If I pinch your bottom, and I never would, but would that be a sexual assault?
Yes, it would.
Yes.
Of course it would. And I think, the whole sort of tone sometimes is that actually women are making a fuss about nothing.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Talking about, women being silenced, and there's a real example of how women, when they find a voice, actually have an awful lot to say. If anybody doesn't understand how women feel about this, they should go to the Everyday Sexism Project website. And women are posting on there about their everyday experiences of what they experience in terms of inappropriate sexual contact and inappropriate comments in the street or wherever at work, the things that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And for the guys out there who don't understand where some of the women coming on this programme are coming from, they really ought to just take a look at that and think, wow, if I had to put up with that every day, I wouldn't be staying silent. But these women are, because they don't know how to deal with it, and they're not listened to.
So the phrase that you hear sometimes on the other side of this argument, if there is another side of the argument, some women give as good as they get. Mm-hmm. What about that then?
I think yes. I mean, you get a group of women out and about, and and they're making comments about guys. I'm not condoning that as in a sense, but what we're talking about is more women in their everyday lives, whether they're at college or going about shopping or working.
It's happening and they don't want it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you very much. 9:49. Some interesting calls, and I appreciate all of them. Here's Michelle. We'll come to Murray in Cardiff in a minute.
This is 5 Live Breakfast. Your call.
Unwanted groping. How easy is it to deal with it and get it sorted? Steve's in Leicester, Murray in Cardiff, Peter in Coventry, and Kathy in Eastbourne. Murray, good morning.
Hello there.
Hi there.
I really rang up to challenge this view that, sexual innuendo and wolf whistling is supposed to be flattering. My daughter, when she was 14, found herself having to take a hugely roundabout route to come home from school, and I discovered that it was because of the flattering remarks from people on a building site. I went and called at the site, explained to the people there that it was unacceptable.
Good for you.
It didn't stop it. I wrote to the employer and I got absolutely no response. And actually it happened again a year later when she was 15 with some builders on another house in the road. Now, I don't see anything flattering about that. She didn't see anything flattering about that. And in fact, I consider it to be child abuse. So maybe they'd like to reflect on whether or not it is all that flattering.
Yep. Kathy in Eastbourne. Hi, Kathy.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say I'm an ex-police officer of 16 years in the Metropolitan Police, and I never once experienced or witnessed sexism apart from women. And I actually saw women regularly virtually throwing themselves at men to try and get what they wanted out of any situation. Sitting on their laps and running their fingers through their hair and all sorts of things. And I also witnessed how nasty women can get when they do things like that and don't get their way. And I think there's a whole other side of this that isn't being looked at. We're talking, or people ringing up about this, women particularly, are often talking about women as if they don't have a bad bone in their body. And believe me, as a woman, I witness women every day being every bit as bad as any man can be, and quite nasty. And in fact, my son's been called a geek by women, and all sorts of abusive things. There are only 3 groups of people in our society that have a voice, and it's women, black people, and gay people. And the vast majority of us out here get no voice at all. And I'm fed up with hearing women moaning, because yes, abuse is wrong, but abuse is wrong against anybody. And you would believe, the way things are in this country, that abuse can only ever happen to 3 groups of people.
Who needs to have a voice that doesn't have a voice at the moment?
Well, so many people out here, for instance, disabled people.
Right.
Now, we all know that they are having a terrible, terrible time in our society. I've worked with them at a Cheshire home, and I know how hard life is for them when they go out into public and get stared at and things said and even spat at. They have the most appalling time. But who really cares? How often do they ever get a platform? You know, how often does anybody, apart from the three groups of people I'm talking about, and I think we all know by now, we've had years of it, that this is the truth, that the normal public, the average, everyday person out here gets no voice at all.
What do you mean a normal public? What if a disabled person is...
about anybody with an opinion that doesn't match up to the opinions of those three minorities. They get... and We're beginning to get a bit more of a voice now, but for a very long time now, we've been shut up.
So disabled people don't have a voice. Who else? So you say only gay people, women, and who else has a voice?
Black people.
Black people, right.
Yes. And I think
ethnic minority people, do they have a voice? Other ethnic minority people, do they have a voice?
Not really, no.
No, just black people?
Yes.
Right. Peter in Coventry. Good morning, Peter.
Hello, Nicky.
What's your point?
Well, my point is, I think there's societal double standards here. I was in a singles group about 18 years ago, and three separate women on different occasions groped me. Now, I'm talking about in the groin. I got my clothes on. One was at a party, one was at a disco, the other one was in a pub. When a partner was sort of looking somewhere else, he walked past me and grabbed me in that area. And I never made a complaint.
in that area, at the party, yes.
I never made a complaint because, well, it's not a manly thing to do. Society doesn't expect men to, be distressed about things like that and just sort of laugh it off. Well, I didn't think it was funny. I was quite shocked, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, sort of correlate to that, I actually went out with the woman who owned and ran the group. When I finished with her, she asked me to leave, and I said, well, I've made friends in the group, and I don't want to leave just because I've finished with you, sort of thing. And then she complained that I was touching some woman inappropriately or something or other, and I had no recollection of what she was talking about. The only thing I ever did in the group, because I'm quite a tactile man, was women I was very close to, friendly with, just a little squeeze across the shoulder, or very, very exceptionally, maybe a little squeeze across the waist, and that's all. I never touched. I don't consider that to be inappropriate.
A squeeze on the shot? No.
Then I started going out with another woman in the group, and when she ultimately finished with me, I was upset and distressed, and I found other women that I was friendly with just to talk about it because I felt emotional and upset and ask advice and all that kind of thing, shoulders to cry on. She found out about it and kicked me out of the group for some sort of, because I was harassing women or something.
All right, let's have Stephen Lester. Hi, Steve. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Hi. Well, my tale goes back to when I was 18. I worked as a clothing company with a factory floor, about 300 women on it. And part of my role involved in having to go onto the factory floor. I was regularly groped and comments made and lots of giggling and laughing. But one particular day, it all went a stage further, and a mob of them got hold of me, stripped me completely naked, physically abused me, and then tipped me into one of the huge bins, which is on wheels. And a couple of the women got in with me, and I left there with scratches and cuts and you name it.
My goodness me. What happened?
What happened subsequently to that? Well, I didn't make a complaint. I was 18, naive, but I have to say I avoided the factory floor after that. I stayed with the company, but wouldn't go near the factory floor again. I was just at the hands of a baying mob. It was quite scary.
My goodness. Leonard in Milton Keynes. Good morning, Leonard.
Good morning. Well, I don't think it's easy to speak out against that kind of thing, especially being a woman. Going way back now, but I do know people who have experienced or been on the receiving end of groping or inappropriate touching, if you like, and while they've felt at ill ease about it, they haven't actually made a song and dance about it or brought it out into the public spotlight. They've sort of tended to hope it'll just go away, basically.
Do you think it's better now than it was, though? Do you think things have improved?
Well, I think, in the media you're seeing some high-profile cases and, I don't want to go on about the Jimmy Savile thing, but it's out there. So I think maybe people now are beginning to maybe feel a little bit more comfortable with actually speaking out. That's my personal view on it.
Mm-hmm. Easier to speak out now. Murray, you'd hope that was the case, wouldn't you?
Well, you'd hope it was, but the reality is that it isn't. Although you've inspired me, I'm going to go along to my local community police team next month, and I'll raise it with them there. So how's that?
Well, good luck.
Cheers.
And well done for being so proactive and taking the bull by the horns.
Women is for men to deal with, not for women.
All right, thanks, Murray. Thanks, Leonard,
then,
Peter, everybody else who called in this morning, men and women. Thank you very much for listening. That has been Breakfast for a Monday. Rachel's back tomorrow. She'll be here thanks very much to Ellie, who's had a great stint. Rachel back. Delighted to say Rachel back tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I'll be joining at 7. There'll be another Your Call for you at 9 o'clock. This is BBC Radio 5 Live. Coming next with all the news and the breaking news, it's Victoria. Have a great Monday.